First thing that comes to mind when you hear Milano Cortina 2026?
Stress. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Kane.
And I'm Dani Aravich.
Together, we're your hosts for Making It to Milan.
Let's jump in. I am so excited to bring a guest that I know fairly well. She competed at the 2018 Winter Paralympics, winning gold medals in snowboard cross, bank slalom, and won a gold and bronze medal at the 2022 Winter Paralympics. She's also the first Paralympian to appear in the swimsuit issue of Sports Illustrated, and she's a co-founder of the very impressive media para collective called Cultured and a good friend. Welcome, Brenna Huckaby. How did you get started in the sport of snowboarding? Because you grew up in Louisiana, not a place where people can snowboard.
It's flat. There are lots of trees. It's muggy and it's hot. So my sport then was gymnastics. I grew up doing gymnastics. It was my oasis away from home. My identity was wrapped in gymnastics. I wore the shirt, eat, sleep, breathe gymnastics. When I was 14, I had this knee pain that was persistent and went to the doctor. And that's where I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma bone cancer. And osteosarcoma is unique because, to other cancers, because it's in the bone. So you have to either remove the leg entirely or remove the bone and replace it with a metal fixation leg. At the time, the way my cancer was presenting, the only option for me to save my life was an amputation. Why is all of this important to how I started snowboarding? Because I went on a trip, a rehabilitation ski trip with my hospital. The whole idea was if these kids could ski down a mountain and objectively conquer a real mountain, when they came home, they could conquer their literal or their figurative mountains of everyday life. I was set on learning how to snowboard because it reminded me of a balance beam. It just looked cooler and I wanted to be a part of the cool kids. And originally they were like, no, it's too dangerous. You're an above the knee amputee. There's only 20 above the knee amputees in the world who snowboard. That's crazy. I am stubborn and I'm persistent. And those are two things that I love about myself. And so I wore them down with my gift of gab and I was able to snowboard and immediately fell in love. It was harder than any other sport I'd ever tried as an amputee. And that sucked me in. My mom was on that trip with me. She saw how much light it brought me. And she was like, we got to make this happen. So moved to Utah from Louisiana so that I could heal after cancer through snowboarding.
So, knowing we're a gymnast and then try snowboarding, and I love what you said about the balance beam. Who were your sport idols as a kid?
Well, yeah, I didn't know any para athletes until 2014 probably, because that was probably the first time I watched the Paralympics, which is so sad, but that's okay. It's getting better. But growing up, I was all into gymnastics, Carly Patterson, Nastia Lukin, Shawn Johnson. There was this one gymnast for me that really where I was this is my girl. Sari Morrison, she competed at LSU. So she wasn't an Olympian, but she was 5'9". And so when I did gymnastics, I was tall. I had so much body image issues because of my height as a gymnast. Everyone and their mom, anytime you're I did gymnastics, they're you're a little tall for a gymnast. And and it's yeah, but I'll kick your short daughter's butt. For me, seeing that representation of oh, she is crushing it. She's at LSU and she's tall. I can do that too.
I think in gymnastics, I think about dance and ballet, that the body types are so specific often and you feel forced into that bucket. So how, when you transferred over to snowboarding, do you feel like you looked like a snowboarder or fit the mold, or did you try to change something about your appearance to fit into snowboarding?
That actually plays into my advantage quite significantly, being taller. Imagine me next to you, a big girl, a tall girl next to you, I'm coming.
That's so crazy when you think about gymnastics, because I, growing up, was a basketball player and all I ever wanted was to be tall. That's all I ever wanted. I think now the running space is at least moving to there's short and stocky girls who can be really fast in distance running, and there's really tall and lean girls, and There's people who recently had a child who's coming back and running incredibly fast. So I think that that's nice that the body type in that sport is more inclusive. And I think it is in cross-country skiing too, because we see actually quite a wide range of body types there.
Yeah.
So you said, you were a perfectionist and gymnastics made you be very dialed in at a young age. You're dedicated to a sport. And now you're in a sport at a very elite level, a very different sport than gymnastics. What have you learned about either mindset or the way you train or the way you approach training that you wish you could tell 12, 13-year-old Brenna who is obsessing over gymnastics?
Listen, I feel like I'm having to tell her now today through my inner child, because there is so much work that I have been having to do. I think the whole concept of like personal agency, I wish I could have learned that younger. So I wish I could go tell my young self, like, make it your own.
Something I've had to learn, as I'm sure you have had, having many different coaches, is oftentimes, especially if you're new in a sport or you're young, if you're a teenager trying to make a team for gymnastics and it's cutthroat, you will listen to a coach like they are God and they know all. And as we get older and as we become adults and hopefully mature in our sports, we realize I actually know a lot more than I sometimes let myself believe. And I could be answering these questions for myself instead of seeking validation or reassurance from this figure who's often in the coach role.
Yeah, that's like one of the hardest things for me. There's so many like perfect paths, or like the path of least resistance to get to where you want to be. And your coaches, like their whole job is to like direct you to that path. But like what I'm learning, especially as I've gotten more experienced in my sport, is like, well, that path may be like the perfect path for like the perfect athlete. I'm not the perfect athlete. Like I'm me, I'm Brenna.
It's very hard for me too. I think for me, it's because I started this sport so much later in life than all my competitors. And so I'm struggling to figure out if I am on that right path, because everyone else had a more traditional path. And I'm trying to catch up to these people who are younger than me in age, but more experienced than me in sport. And I'm always seeking validation. And it's cool now being in year 5 is I'm starting to find ways to validate myself and how to, look at my training, be able to write some of my own training. And I'm seeing some of these athletes coming into our program who are 2 years in, and they are just looking at our coach for, am I doing this right? Please tell me I'm doing this right. Am I doing this right? If I do this, will I get this? And it's so, I just want to shake them because I was in that position 2 years ago and be like, you know the answer yourself. It's within you.
Can you like shake me like that? Because I think I need it.
Yeah, we'll do it for each other. Both preparing here for Milan. What's different about this games for you?
I'm feeling very veteran. Like, of course, I'm excited to receive all the Team USA gear and like that whole process. But I feel less like nervous anticipation on what to expect. Also is I did not have babies in between these games, which is like great for my body. But what I didn't realize is how much harder that is mentally to be locked in all 4 years. Because typically, like, I'm forced to shift my focus onto a newborn baby. And so not being able to shift my focus the last 4 years, like, managing burnout has been, I think, my biggest obstacle. And like we've switched NGBs in the last 4 years, which just has its own like mental aspect to it. And so
learning a new system.
On top of that, I'm still in the tougher category. One thing that's hard being in the tougher category is my peak as an above the knee amputee is just naturally going to be lower than a below the knee amputee's peak. And so a lot of the women that I've been competing against have also gotten better this season or the last 4 years, just as I have, but their progression might be a little bit higher than where I've been.
If you don't follow Brenna on social media, you need to. Bren Hucks. She has been posting a ton about preparations for Milan. You've been dialing in strength training, nutrition, stuff like that. And if you could just talk to us a little bit about why that became more of a priority, and have you seen marginal gains? Because I'm actually very similar. We both, outside of sport, have very busy lives. You have your family, your business, our business. I'm working multiple jobs. And so sometimes I too let some of those things slip. Like I focus so much on my training that sometimes I don't eat enough or don't eat the right stuff or didn't do enough recovery, because the reality is most professional athletes in the Olympic and Paralympic space do have a lot of other stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the NBA or the NFL where this is our sole only gig that we have to worry about, so we can dial in everything because it's the only thing to do that day. We have a lot of other things to balance. So what made you want to prioritize those, and how has it been going?
Because I've noticed the improvements in my competitors, I need to find every edge that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing this for so long that dude, gains are so hard to make where I'm at in snowboarding, because
They're smaller.
They're so small. And so I was like, okay, what can I do this off season that's going to hopefully give me even just a 0.5% of a gain?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I was like, okay, I can be more consistent in the gym, but the gym doesn't matter if I don't fuel properly. While I haven't been pregnant this games, I've dealt with something called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I had no idea that's what I had been dealing with for the last 2 or 3 years until last summer. I had finally reached out for help. I'm like, am I bipolar? What is happening to me? And that's when I was diagnosed with PMDD. So I started treatment for that last summer. That was a process, not a great one. But now it's managed, and I'm like, okay, I have the ability to be consistent for the first time in I don't know how long. I also am managing ADHD, and I'm taking medication for it. So both of those things being managed, I'm for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm able to be consistent. I have seen gains from our testing that we did preseason to this off season. It's not as much as I had dreamed of seeing. It was a marginal gain, but it was a gain nonetheless.
For both of us who started our sport not in early childhood, you get so good so fast to a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so exciting because you're going from getting last, all of a sudden you're in the middle of the pack, and then you're scratching the podium, and then you realize, oh shoot, the next little jump, our jumps were huge, and now this one's gonna be and then it might go down. So it's so frustrating as competitive people and perfectionists that we are, to realize that it takes so much more work to get the smallest bit more progress, whereas in those early days, our jumps were gigantic.
I miss leaps and bounds. I miss them so much.
They were so fun the first few years, and you said, wow, I'm getting so good so fast. I'm going to become the best so quickly at this rate. And then you get so close and you're like, oh yeah, now this is where it really gets really, really tough. Something that's unique in the Winter Olympic and Paralympic space is very few sports actually host trials, like an event where you show up, you compete, and that's how the team for the games is determined. In the winter sports, a lot of it's based on points with your federation and rankings and all these other things. So what will it take for you to make it to Milan?
I know if I stay healthy, I will be there. I just need to focus on as much as I can learn this season so that when I get to March, I will be prepared.
I think a lot of people aren't fully tapped into as fans is we're doing all this media. We're talking about the Olympics and the Paralympics coming up, but there's still a full World Cup season ahead of the Paralympic Games. Yeah. So do you focus all your energy for the Paralympics in March, or are you saying, I'm not even thinking about that maybe right now. I got to get through World Cup number 1 and World Cup number 2 and World Cup number 3?
No, I definitely think I'm end all being all in March. And I'm kind of looking at all of our World Cups as I say this and it's so cheesy, but I'm the war is the games, and I have to do all the little battles to get there. I'm so like a perfectionist, competitive. If I don't find a way to like weigh out things, I will think everything is like super important, and then I'll like beat myself up if I don't, reach whatever, which like, okay, maybe I should work in therapy to not do that. But instead, I'm going to have like the battles in the war.
So, Brenna, as the veteran on the team, you're probably going to have some girls qualify on your team for their first games. Is there any piece of advice you'd like to instill in them ahead of their first games?
This is the first games that everyone besides myself has never been to a games. I am team mom. When it was my first time to the games, most people didn't extend a hand and being like, let me show you around. Like, I'm so excited that you're here. It was very cutthroat. I would rather die before I act like that. And so I'm like, I've been giving them like everything that I can. I'm like, show up. If you have the opportunity to do something pre-games, like show up, do it.
Yeah.
Get comfortable, because like, it's going to be crazy. It is so easy to get caught up in the circus of it. And then all of a sudden, you're competing and you're exhausted and your legs hurt because you've been walking around the village and talking to a million people. So I'm like, set out intentional times of, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be village party girl, and then I'm going to come back and be athlete, and be so intentional about it.
And that's what happened in Beijing. I got a little overserved some wine from the media hotel, which this para snowboard team taught me about. Let's talk about representation. We are two of the co-founders of Cultured, a Paralympic sports media company. What do you wish more people understood about the para movement that we could leave them with here today?
I had someone the other day even tell me, like, I've never, like, what are the Paralympics? And also, no, worse, the other day I was talking to someone in a prominent position in media who equated my Paralympics to the Special Olympics, which I'm not putting one above the other. They're just different sporting events. And so it's, this day and age, we have people in like high levels of media that still aren't getting it right. So I guess I would hope more people know that we are the highest level of competition for people with physical disabilities, though in summer, I believe there are some cognitive disabilities for athletes who outperformed the Special Olympics, but otherwise, for the most part, it is the highest level of competition for physical disabilities. And it is that, as an athlete who has competed at a high level in a non-disabled sport, I have worked so much harder in my Paralympic career, and it just does not fully get the recognition that it deserves, at least not in the 3 years leading up to the games.
I think you and I are particularly two loud voices in the room, but I think there is this this burden that is placed on para athletes to be advocates, to be educators, and we have taken that upon us, but not everyone should.
It's not only do you have to educate on disability, do you have to be a representation of disability, but you also have to be an inspiring figure and like almost exploit a very traumatic event that happened to you and share it in a way that's inspiring, right? Because people don't want to hear about your depression that you've had from it. They want to hear about how you overcame the depression that you had from it. That I wasn't ready for. And that was another reason for Culture too, of like, it's not expected of non-disabled athletes to share those harder parts of the stories. Mm-hmm. Is it helpful when they do? And are they making an impact and a difference when they do? Yes, absolutely. But it is their choice to share it. And I feel like, yes. And that is something that I feel like has gotten lost, or like just in the mix of trying to grow the Paralympic movement. We've had to become an inspiration in a way that maybe we didn't consent to. And I just want to make sure that we have autonomy and choice in how we share our stories. And I would like younger athletes to know you do have a choice. And the more that you think about that and feel less expected to show up in a certain way, you are also shaping the landscape for future athletes and how they come in.
And performing well in your sport. Yeah. That alone gives the visibility, gives the recognition, and makes this just a more legitimate sport entity. Like the better athletes we have, the better competition that we have is going to grow the overarching movement. And so some athletes should be just that, athletes and only athletes, and be the best. Brenna, they say it takes a village to raise a child. You have 2 children. And I think it also takes a village for us to be able to compete and be elite athletes. So who is in your village and how have they supported you?
Okay, my village is massive. I feel like I have my in real life village, and then I have my sports village. Sports village, coaches, sports psych, nutritionists, strength and conditioning, wax techs that do not get enough credit. I'm sure the list goes on. Sponsors. So just everybody who makes me being an athlete possible. And then I have my everyday village. And that's where my husband, I could not do this without him. He takes over the role of primary care provider for our family when I'm gone, which not every husband is open to that because gender roles in a lot of ways are swapped and people have a lot of feelings about that. But my husband doesn't and neither do I. So that's really cool. And then we have our parents that have helped us. And then I would say my biggest village motivator and my why that I keep doing this is my girls. Showing my kids that you can go out and forge your own path and do things that look different than you might have been taught. That doesn't mean that they're negative. That doesn't mean that they're bad. It means that you need to learn how to self-validate. And it means that, you're worth investing in and you're worth just showing up for. And so I hope that I'm showing my girls that as I continue on this path.
Well, I'm sure you are doing that. And I could ask you questions forever, but I wanted to bring on someone special who is very much in your village.
My name is Lila Clegg. My mom is a Paralympic snowboarder. If you don't know what that is, it's basically the Olympics for people with disabilities.
After she finishes her race, she's looking for the family in the crowd. What are you doing?
I'd probably over here. And then I'd probably give her a big hug.
Oh, how do you support your mom when she's had a bad day of training or at work or a bad race?
I say, what happened? And then she answers. And then I usually say, well, at least you try. Or something like that.
And has she instilled in you a love of snowboarding?
Yes, I really love snowboarding. I've been snowboarding since I'm 8 weeks or months. I forgot which one.
Probably 8 months would be my assumption. So how would you celebrate with your mom after she competes in the Milan
We'd
Paralympics?
probably go and have a big dinner, and then we'd have a good dessert, and then we'd go home, and then you'd probably stay out all night, which we don't get to do very often, and then you'd be yay, 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 really excitedly.
Are you going to be the loudest person cheering in Milan?
Probably. It's going to be a life-changing experience.
A life-changing experience? That's awesome. The cutest girl ever and sassiest. First thing you will eat or drink after the games to celebrate?
I can't eat gluten. It makes my diet really disappointing, especially in Italy. If they have gluten-free ravioli, that's all me eat.
First thing that comes to mind when you hear Milano Cortina 2026.
Stress. No, excitement, but also gluten that I can't eat.
How do you want people to remember your Milan performance? One word.
One word. So mean. Iconic.
Hardest part about being a Paralympian that nobody sees?
For me is navigating equipment, prosthetic equipment, and then also the fit of the prosthetic because mine changes so much. And right now I'm on crutches a lot because my leg doesn't fit very well because I've put on muscle. And that doesn't happen to non-disabled people, that they put muscle on and they can't walk. That's kind of messed up.
Do you prefer the hot or cold weather as a winter athlete?
Hot? I hate being cold, man. I'm from Louisiana.
Well, thanks, Brenna, for coming and hanging out with me. And everyone, follow Brenna on social media. Also, follow Cultured.
If you're a sports fan, then you will absolutely be a parasports fan. So give it a try and watch us in Milan.
Thank you for tuning into Flame Bearers Making It to Milan.
If you like what you heard, please like, follow, and subscribe to Flame Bearers on YouTube and anywhere you get your favorite podcasts.
Stay tuned as we bring you more behind-the-scenes stories of women athletes around the world training for the competition of a lifetime. See you next time on Making It to Milan.